Welcome to episode 100 of the Family Geekery Podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm Amber.
And I'm Danny.
And this week we have a very special guest with us. You can see him on the screen. Charlie, can you find him?
I think so.
Charlie McElvy, who is a comic book writer, creator, and we'll get into all the things that he's gotten into amongst other special talents. But Charlie, thank you so much for joining us on our special 100th episode.
Woo!
I'm super honored to be here. This is awesome. And excuse me if I drink a lot of ginger ale. I just got over being sick, so I might even mute out and cough a few times. But no, thanks for having me. I'm super glad to be here. Yes, I found me. Unfortunately I can run from me, but I can't hide from me. So, but you guys can. So,
and that's episode 100. Thank you for listening. So this is generally an audio-only podcast. Every 5 episodes, we do a video podcast. We've had some special guests over the last 100 episodes. I think episode 25, it was us. We were our own special guest. 50, we had Brian Horton, who is an artist. And episode 75, we had a band called A Sound of Thunder. So they are local-ish to us, Northern Virginia. And that was great because I don't know if you've ever met or heard of them, Charlie, but they have tie-ins to comics also. They have comics about their music and music about their comics. So that is really cool.
Real quick, are you cutting out for anyone else?
I was going to ask, I wasn't sure if it was
yeah.
Okay.
It was like going in and out a little bit.
That's probably this weird setup that we have here, but I think hopefully it's recording me on my side fine.
See, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find out in the edit.
Okay.
So disclaimer: if this sounds like garbage, we'll blame the system. But yeah, we ran into them. They actually played the local arcade, which is right over by Gateway Comics.
Reclaim. I love that place.
Reclaim Arcade. Yep. So they were actually playing a show there when I approached them to be our guests. So that leads us to another localish type guy, and approached him at the last GalaxyCon. We've met at a couple Comic Cons. We've met at some free comic book days, and then at the last GalaxyCon, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, approached and he gratefully said yes. So here we are. That's the quick backstory as to how we got Charlie onto the podcast. So again, welcome and thank you.
No, again, my pleasure. I'm happy to be here. And Danny and Amber, it's really nice to meet you, ladies.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
I was too busy getting this book signed over here. So,
which book is that?
Sailor Moon. Christina V was there, so I was standing in that line for a while.
A long while, I'm sure.
Apologies for not meeting you there.
No, you do not have to apologize. I would have done the same thing. I fangirl quite often, trust me. Sometimes I get to cheat, though, because like when I go to these cons, I met Eraserhead last year, and he was super dope. But we talked at the end of a Sunday when nobody was around. He was like, and he just, we talked for like, 20 minutes, and he goes, "Oh, dude, do you want something?" I was like, and he just signs a thing for my son, and he goes, so it was super, super great. So I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, I wasn't sure on these big type cons, when you see an empty booth and you want to go say hi to the guy, you're not sure if it's going to be the I'm happy to meet any fan, or it may be I haven't made my money back yet, so you're going to have to buy something, buddy.
Yeah. No,
so I just wave from afar.
Or you can walk by and do the whole selfie,
Oh, yeah. I tried that.
Yeah, it doesn't always work. Yeah.
I got told no by a volunteer, which I completely understand.
Yeah, they were going to charge my wife. She just wanted to see Ric Flair this last time, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you can take a selfie with him." And she's like, "Oh great!" And he's like, $90. We're like, "Nah, with my camera."
When you're Ric Flair, you can make those kind of demands.
Woo!
Yeah. So give us a quick little spiel as to who you are and what you do, and then we'll dive into the specifics.
Hey, so you got my name right, which is a rarity. So thank you very much. I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, Charlie McElvy. I've been working in indie comics for, gosh, man, I think the first book I published was actually a gaming supplement. So I started creating a book called WatchGuard probably before Danny was born, and it's been a long while. And when I started creating it, it was one of those, well, I don't have an audience, and who's going to buy this book, and who cares about a little independent guy? Kickstarter was in its nascency, so it was very, very new. People were not sure how crowdfunding even worked, um, and so it was an interesting time. And so what I did, I published a WatchGuard source book, and I tagged it to a gaming system that allowed me to have a free license to put their logo on it. Well, lucky me, it won a couple of awards, nominated for one of the biggest awards for gaming products, and I was super stoked about that. And I got my audience, which was great. So I guess they say the rest is history. And I've had a pretty loyal audience for the last decade plus over the various things that I've done. But I just wasn't satisfied, so I started moving into what am I doing next with my comic stuff, and took a little hiatus. And Spider Squirrel was born just a few years ago, and right at the height of COVID and stuff, Kickstarter had a great, had a big surge. I managed to ride part of that wave, and yeah. So ever since then, I published Spider Squirrel, four issues plus one trade for Spider Squirrel. And then I've done one spinoff so far. There's another couple in the pipeline. And so then I started publishing other people's work. So gone from being an independent, self-published dude to someone who's now starting to pick up other creators, and they're bringing their works up under my banner, which is changing soon, which we talked about a little bit beforehand. But Zion Studios is what I've been since I started doing graphic design back in the 2001. Was doing some of that stuff, and then that's moved from graphic design into comics, kept the name, and it's evolving yet again. So Zion's going to be the overarching publishing banner, and these superhero works that I'm doing and all ages stuff is going to be under the Blind Squirrel banner. So yeah, so just keep evolving. I don't know, man. I do all kinds of stuff, and my favorite thing is meeting people and the people that bring us all together. It's such a great time. And you were there for Free Comic Book Day. Um, well, no, you weren't there, were you?
I was there last year.
That's right. Yeah, Free Comic Book Day was great. I get to hang out with Brian Hawkins and Patrick Foreman, two friends that I haven't seen in a while, and just meet all these great people. It's great. So I don't know. I live off that stuff, man.
And I think at the time when I met you last year at the Free Comic Book Day, this year I was traveling home. But last
right.
year, I think you pointed out to me, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you pointed out to me the real life Trash Panda.
Oh, yes.
Would he have been there?
He was absolutely there. Yeah. Jeremy
Okay.
is a local retired Marine, and yeah, a great friend. I've known him, actually. We met through obstacle course racing. So I used to run a lot more than I do now, but I ran as many as 100 events in one year. And Jeremy and I just came across each other a lot of times. It's kind of funny. He ended up marrying a girl that was in my youth group that I kind of youth pastored, which is all kinds of, like, my worlds just collided. It was really crazy. So it's kind of funny. And then she goes on Naked and Afraid, so she's been on the show. Anyway. It's weird, but yes, he's a real life Trash Panda. He's a great dude, and we actually did a live stream where I ate pineapple pizza. And for those of you who know me, know I love pineapple and I love pizza. I do not love the convergence of the two. So
I saw that as one of your Kickstarter goals, or to do the live stream of eating pizza. That was actually on my list of things to ask.
Yeah.
But from inference, I just kind of took it that you, like myself, don't think that those two should be together.
Just add some jalapeno. It's good.
No, Amber, no. I've tried that, and I don't mind. It's funny. I don't mind the flavors. Like, they don't clash as badly as I think some people make it out to be. But everyone's palate's different. But for me, it's a texture thing. Like, it drives me bonkers. The crunch of the pineapple does not jive with the rest of the whatever's on the pizza. I don't care what you put on it.
Yeah. That's same with me. The fibrous, it's for me not the
That's
crunch,
it.
but the fibrous texture.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me. So we
All
got
right,
that.
Danny, where are you at in that argument?
I've had it like once, and I mean it was okay. I tolerated it, but it's nothing I go to.
She's a
I like how
plain
I
cheese pine or pepperoni.
Cheese and pepperoni only.
Okay, I dig it.
Don't mess with a good thing.
No.
So just a quick little side note. You mentioned the tough muddy mud runners, those type things. Just a quick curiosity. Did you ever use back in the day the app called Tough and Muddy? It was an iPhone app.
No.
Okay, probably not, but it was. I made it for a client, and
That's cool.
and this client's a personal trainer / life coach now, but she had created all these workouts for Tough and Muddy was the name of it, and she got some very upsetting emails from Tough Mudder.
Tough Mudder.
Tough Mudder.
Yeah.
Yep.
The C&Ds. Yep.
Yep. Some cease and desist, but we massaged the title a little bit. We massaged some of the search words, and she did pretty well with that. But yeah, just a curiosity. You never know when you run into somebody that actually knew something that you make.
No, 100%. I was, I probably know her. It's funny, the obstacle course racing community is super small. I joke that it's a lot like IT. You know, I'm in IT for my day job, and IT for as big an industry as it is, it's very small when it comes to relationships and people and stuff like that. So everybody knows everybody, it seems like. And OCR is not much different. Obstacle course racing is very similar, where you start talking to somebody and you go, oh yeah, I know that person, they did blah blah, and you go, oh wow, how'd you, okay. So I may know her. We'll have to talk offline and I'll figure out who she is, especially if she's local, because I used to run with a local group called the Capital Punishment. That was our name.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so kind of DC-ish based. I also ran with the Justice Beavers. Yes, the Justice Beavers. And they're local here in Fredericksburg, although most of them moved away. But
Great names. So let's talk about Spider Squirrel. Is Spider Squirrel would you say the biggest title that you've done so far, or?
Yeah, that's a fair shake. Spider Squirrel. First off, it was the first Kickstarter I had done in almost a decade, and it was a phenomenal success. I did not expect it. I did do 2 years. I spent 2 years building up to it, teasing it in social media and stuff like that. I think what really kind of caught it was great timing for me because, again, Kickstarter was kind of on a nice little uptick. COVID had happened, and people were looking for different things to do and so forth. And they got tired of axe throwing in their backyards or whatever they were doing. And that's what we were doing anyway. And so, yeah, I think I was very fortunate, but also I think that Spider Squirrel captured a little something of the personality of what people were looking for at the time. A little bit of the Zeitgeist, if you will, right? And what really got the attention was that Benny's pizza cover and the whole pineapple, no pineapple argument. And it's so funny to this day. I have that as my banner when I go to shows, and I have people walk by and they couldn't give two cruds about a comic book, but they'll stop and go, pineapple. No pineapple, and so it's fun. I think there's that, and then I think also we're seeing a lot of this in the industry where folks are looking for more of that less weighty, heavy comic. That's definitely a book style that people love, and they go into whether they're very political or whether they're very social or whatever. But I think a lot of folks are also looking for something just fun and to read and kind of remind them of what they read when they were kids. Guys like me who are old and like to read books that make you giggle a little bit while also telling a story. So I think I've been very fortunate with that. And Spider Squirrel, yeah, is definitely the flagship of everything, which is why when I'm rebranding the Spider Squirrel books, we're going with Blind Squirrel because even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. So hopefully you find your nut with the books that I have, whether it's Spider Squirrel or Milestone or Night Care or whatever.
It's interesting that you have observed that in the recent industry. because I grew up being a Marvel guy, right? Everything was going to be Marvel.
Yep.
In my 7 or 8 long boxes from when I was a kid, there may be 2 or 3 titles of DC stuff. So I was just like Marvel. But now as I'm older and we've got the whole universe on TV and movies and all that, I've got enough of that to consume. I'm leading towards, and I think the girls have noticed that I'm pushing towards the indie comics a little bit more, and we've reviewed several of those on this podcast, and it's great just to get something different than the stuff that we already know. Still love it,
Yeah.
still read it, but it's good. Girls, you think that's a fair assumption of what we're doing here?
Oh yeah, it's definitely nice to get new ideas and not have to, like Marvel, it's a lot of like knowing the history and reading all the previous issues and read number 97 to understand this or whatever. So it's nice to like pick up something and know exactly what's happening.
Especially new stuff, I think. It's a lot easier, a lot less daunting to see like a indie issue 1 and be like, oh, I can get this, rather than like Spider-Man issue 1 where it's really Spider-Man issue 1000.
Right, and there's no 50-year history that has to be followed, even though they have multiverses and they have different iterations of even Peter Parker and that whole universe. But just being able to get a fresh, like, here's a new character, this is their limited backstory, and I can do whatever I want with them right now. So that's it's fun to read, so I'm sure it's fun to create also.
Yeah, I think being able to create shackleless, right? I'm not bound to corporate boards of directors who really insist on us going in a certain direction to maximize profitability or to get the next movie out or whatever. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either inherently. I think it's just that to your point, I think people are looking for things a little bit more approachable, a little bit more fresh. Something that is more entertainment and less of a burden to get into. Indie isn't perfect. I mean, we're still trying to find out who and what we are for sure. I think, with Spider Squirrel, like one of my big, I've already written the last Spider Squirrel story. So when it's time to hang up the cape, so to speak, even though he doesn't wear a cape, he wears a hood that he actually doesn't wear. It's a whole other. That's an in-joke, by the way. So
hood up or hood down.
Yeah, you read that, yes.
But he doesn't need it because he's got a mask.
But
right.
Yes, exactly. So no, it's one of those. I've written the last story just because when it's time to hang up the cape or spandex or whatever, hang up the hood for the last time. I want to be able to close it out the way I want to close it out. But at the same time, between now and whenever that is, I think I want to make each of my stories as approachable as possible. I mean, is there an origin story? Yeah. Have I told it yet? No, not really. Does it matter? Didn't seem to. And I think that's just the approach that's a little different, whereas, I mean, some indies dive right in and they do their origin story for the character and you don't see them in costume until the last issue, just like you see in mainstream books. We kind of model off of all of that. But I think to your point, indie is outpacing growth-wise. I think it's starting to outpace the regular books, the mainstream books to some extent. Now I buy some of the mainstream books, like I buy Moon Knight, anything Shang-Chi's in, I usually pick it up. But more and more of my stuff is indie. Space Ghost was my most recent big pickup, and I bought every blasted cover that Gateway got. Except for I missed the Toth cover. For those of you who know who Alex Toth is, I mean, Toth designed Space Ghost, and they had this concept cover, and I was like, I want that, and that was like the one cover I really, really wanted, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So, if anybody out there has a Toth cover they want to give up, please email me. You can find me at Twitter at Charlie McElvy. But yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. It's nice to go into something. I read a lot of manga too, and I pick up a manga and start reading it, and from issue 1 and enjoy, whatever. I've got a whole stack of manga over here behind me. Thankfully, you can't see my messy room. It's way messier than Amber's for sure.
I'm still in the process of decorating.
Your room is so neat and clean. Like I see, like the little kitty cat thing. Like that's pretty dope. and you got your books and stuff, and your Funkos organized. Mine is. I'm not even painting around the room because I'd be embarrassed.
So the first question I had about Spider Squirrel, since you've admitted that he's pseudo autobiographical, that's not even a real word. I just butchered that word, but we're gonna roll with it.
I made it up too, so don't worry.
When you're writing something like that, do you have any reservations of, oh gosh, if I say this, or if he says this, or if he looks like this, or if he does this, is it going to look like Charlie is boasting or, full of himself or something? Is there any? Do you check yourself at all in any of that stuff?
No, I actually sometimes I'll lean into that stuff because I think it's funnier. So life is a caricature, and when you can actually just on its own, if you could take some of the elements of your own life and just make them as absurd as possible. I mean, some of the best jokes come out of that. I like to be self-deprecating in some of the ways too. I think that's some of my personal favorite humor is the kind where you can kind of not tear somebody else down, but kind of jokingly tear yourself down without being like depressing and very sad and pathetic. But no, it doesn't bother me one bit. I mean, I've seen people go, "Oh, self-inserts are like the worst form of artistry," and I go, every form of artistry is self-insert. I don't care who you are. So just because someone's an abstract artist does not mean they did not self-insert. I think that's I dismiss that usually and don't care. And I tell people my book's not for everybody. The jokes I have are sometimes dumb dad jokes, and sometimes they're visual like slapstick jokes, and so there's the stuff that I like. And so I figure if I like it, at least one other person likes it, maybe.
Yeah, all three of our listeners have heard our self-deprecating humor several times.
That being an example.
see how I worked that in there.
Yeah.
Girls, you got any questions about Spider Squirrel?
Not about Spider Squirrel specifically, but this one just kind of popped into my head. There's billions of superheroes out there. Do you find it hard to come up with names for them? Because, I imagine, not everybody can have a Superman.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain names that you have to avoid and stuff.
So it's funny. I actually have a list of names that I haven't even used yet. Sometimes it's the dumbest, most absurd thing. So like Spider Squirrel, for example. Now you can Google Spider Squirrel and you get like this cute little fuzzy spider with a squirrel head, and you'll see that. You may end up seeing My Superhero at some point. But that name was born out of just one of those funny incidents where I actually used to own a parkour ninja gym, and two of my students, they were arguing. Both were named Alex, by the way. And they were arguing over Alex B and Alex C. They were arguing over what I looked like because I was getting ready for American Ninja Warrior. So I was like scripting my whole Be Real stuff and whatever, and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do for it. And one's like, "Oh, he looks like a spider. Look at his long arms and legs, and he's climbing. Look, he's climbing." They know whatever. And the other one goes, "No, look, he's like a squirrel, just not as annoying," which is absolutely not true. But the way I hop around and everything, and they were like serious. They kept arguing. And I go, guys, stop! I'll just be the Spider Squirrel. And and as soon as it hit my ears, I was like, okay, that's fun. And so I went home and I designed the logo and I printed it out actually in my workout pants and I printed it on a shirt. I just had little one-offs and I wore it. That was just a logo. There's nothing there. It was just the word Spider Squirrel, and it stuck and it became a thing. And then that's the kind of thing sometimes that just happens. Now, on the other side of things, like Trash Panda, Jeremy, we were talking about Jeremy earlier. So Jeremy was going by Trash Panda, and this is before Guardians of the Galaxy come out and stuff like that. And we were kind of joking about him being the Trash Panda, the raccoon. And I was like, I'm going to lean into that. And so I did. And that's what we did. Drew Moss and I designed the character, and it became a really fun thing. But I've got characters like Barbell. It's just like this. He'll be this steroidal, overdosed, veiny, ridiculous, like Dale Keown looking beast of a guy who's wearing probably a unitard and looks ridiculous, and he'll be a bad guy. I had Mangoose in the first issue. And it's just sometimes you start writing names down and you come up with nonsense and you go, you know what, that sounds fun. and sometimes you hit gold mines. You hit a couple things. Milestone was not originally the name of the character; it was originally the name of the book, and it was going to be something to do. We weren't actually sure what his name was going to be at the time, and so we started with Milestone. We changed the name because we didn't want to. DC was coming up with the 30th anniversary of the Milestone Initiative, and that became like well, we probably shouldn't do that, especially because I have a black character, and so we opted to change the name to God Quest, and I was like, well, we just moved the name of the character down to Milestone. It worked, and he's actually probably going to get another name change later. So, spoiler. It's fun. I think if you sat down long enough and played around with words enough, you'd come up with a bajillion names. Sit down and try to come up with like a bunch of Pokemon names and watch what you come up with. You'll come up with like the Beetleopolis or something like that. And next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'll draw that, and that's what happens. So, and you may never use them. I have so many characters. I literally have a pile over here. This is one of those messes, but I have a pile of pages over here and notebooks and stuff and binders. It's about 17 inches tall. That is mostly characters or storylines that I haven't done anything with yet. And I sketch them out and, whatever. They're probably trash. Or maybe I'll put them in the background somewhere. So I don't think it's hard. I think it's just a matter of thinking outside the box. Sometimes you let the story tell the character too.
Cool. So I can cross off another potential question. That was the time frame of Trash Panda. Like when you see that in the movies, do you chuckle to yourself or do you get upset a little bit or you just like chalk it up to okay, it is what it is.
Yeah, I was in the theater and I was watching. I go, son of a motherless goat! I can't believe, of course, And so, and we had just come out with the book because, like I said, I had 2 years of ramping up into this thing, and then, well, it's too late now. Same thing happened actually with the multiverse. The Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is. If you've read the Spider Squirrel issues 1 and 2, you know that Spider Squirrel bounces through the Indie Comics multiverse. Well, I mean. The multiverse has been around for a long time, whether we called it that or not. We had all these alternate universes back in the 60s and 70s and 80s and stuff. And then Morrison comes along, and now we've got a multiverse. We had a name for it, and I think he's the one that coined it. And so, it's just a thing now. But sure enough, people go, well, did you do that after Doctor Strange? I was like, do you know how long it takes to put a book together?
Right.
No. So no,
and you had them falling through different art styles and everything. That was
really important to do that.
Yeah, that was great. Now, and that was a great use of multiple artists, and that leads up to my next question. You say that you do some sketching, you do some graphic design, but obviously you've pulled in some great talent. At what point do you like hand over the pencil to the artist when you're writing something like this?
Oh, I don't, I love doing design work, and I never fooled myself into thinking I would actually draw a comic book. So really, I've always worked with artists. I was fortunate enough back when I did Watch Guard to work with Andy Smith, who worked at Marvel and DC for 30 years. He worked with the greats like Bart Sears and Ron Mars and these guys. And then just. I'm always looking for artists because I think the one thing that I try to do as an indie is to bring a quality that stands against the mainstream. So I think that's the one thing where, especially in superheroes, I think indie can do better is to try to elevate our overall game. Now it means I need to be better as a writer because the writing does not stand up to the art that I have. But that also it's a visual medium, so I can live with that. But yeah, no, it's usually right off the bat. And a lot of times I write a story, I think I know who I want to work with, and I hope that he or she is available to work with, and that their rates are reasonable. But it's always I'm always going to work with an art team outside of myself. Yeah.
And not to say that you are, but you led up to one of my go-to advices, I guess, in anything creative. And I learned this as a 19-year-old musician, and that is always be in a band where you're the worst member, because you're going to learn faster and you're going to get better, like by necessity. So
Oh,
Good,
100%
good
agree.
strategy.
Yep. Yeah, 100% agree. I brought in an editor who is he's a Vita's a friend. He's my brother, but not literally, but in heart, and he's a better writer than I am. And so I get to I get to hand my script over to Vito, and he goes, "Okay, you said this 3 times in the same page. That's dumb. Don't do that. Change this to this." And so, and I learned, and I actually now I'm actually sensitive. It's funny to your point. Like I think I've learned a lot working with Vito and other writers, frankly, um, and I hear the his voice echo in my head when I read other books, going, "Oh, they said the same thing 5 times in the last 3 pages. Like, come on, guys, use different words. There's synonyms everywhere." So anyway, yes, I agree with you.
All right. Last question specifically to Spider Squirrel, and that is, I need some spoiler action here. Does he ever come up with a catchphrase? I'm holding you to this.
Yeah. No, he doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's funny because I know exactly. So the page you're referring to, the page right before that is this beautiful splash, right, of him leaping, doing a parkour vault over a police car. For those who haven't read the book, that line was actually on that page, and when I got that page, I said nope, and I moved it. Well, it wasn't that exact line; it was something along those lines, and then I changed it. But no, he doesn't have a catchphrase, and he probably never will. So, and it's probably going to be a running joke, I'm sure.
Running
So, same
joke
with the
there.
hood. Yeah.
Perfect. And then I lied. One more question.
Ask
This
as
is
many as you want.
regarding the letters column at the end of issue 2. Were all of those real?
100%, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was
Go
I
ahead.
was thinking the Jimmy Eats Farts was
Oh,
a
I
little
know.
too. The name is fine, but his comment is a little too like real. Almost like a little too like he wasn't pulling any punches when
Yeah.
he asked
No.
like why are you pimping out so many sub stories and the story that we just want to read about Spider Squirrel.
Yeah.
So
I
you had
wanted
a
to
good
post
answer.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I absolutely wanted to post that. It was one of those. I had distributed. So how I did that is I had distributed the digital, which obviously easy to do for the Kickstarter, and then I solicited readers. I was like, hey, for the first issue, why don't you, let's do a letters column before I finish going to print. And so I got every one that I got, I published either in the first issue or second issue. And I try to answer them as honestly as I could. But I got to tell you, doing a letters column, that is the most cumbersome thing in a comic book. So that's why I haven't done them since then. I did it issue 1 and 2, and I didn't bother with 3. And I'd love to go back to it, but I need to hire an intern or have an editor pick it up or something, because that's just it was a whole other task. But no, those are 100% real.
Great.
I hide nothing.
All right. I've got a question about how true the Raspberry Pi comment was. You had mentioned that
The
his
first page.
favorite pastime eating pizza, talking to girls, and playing retro games on a Raspberry Pi. Does that come
that was
straight out
true.
of Charlie then?
Yeah, for at the time I was monkeying around with it. Gave it to my neighbor, and I think he's still monkeying around with it. All these years later. Yeah, it was cool. It was a fun little like nerd moment where I get to play around with it. I actually had been learning Linux for work at the time, so I was like, well, why not do something fun and kind of get smarter at my job at the same time? And so I did. That was there. So yeah, most of what he did, in fact, all the dates he goes on, every one of those is an ex-girlfriend of mine. And not that I actually dated a real vampire, by the way, but yeah, it was and my wife knows. She's, in fact, some of them, I think she's friends with a couple of them. But yeah, so we're having fun. There's a lot of reality in the fiction. Probably more than you think.
Speaking of family, has any of your family members made it into any of your comics?
Yeah. So my wife is the librarian, and she made an appearance in Volume One, but not in the floppies. It will be reprinted in Volume Two, probably issue 1 or 2. I got to find out where I'm going to place it. But for the trade, we wanted to have something special to make the trade valuable for those who already got the floppies, and so we did a 12-page. The original artist who did the first issue and a half, DC Stolpner, um, he wasn't available for the third issue, so I had Ariel Midel, who's now the artist for God Quest, for me do the third issue. But DC said, "Hey, I'm back. I'm ready. Do you have another Spider Squad? I'd love to do some more." And I was like, let's do a 12-page epilogue for the trade. Let's give the folks some value, and so we did. So that sheet first appears in the Spider Squirrel trade at a 12-page epilogue, and it's 100% my wife. She even cosplays. She cosplayed last year at Baltimore for all day Saturday, which is a really long day in that outfit.
So how cool is it when an artist comes to you and says, "Hey, I like that so much. Do you have some more?"
That is actually one of my biggest nerd moments. Like, I totally spaz out when they say stuff like that, or I have people go, "Oh, I've been wanting to work with you," and I go, "Well, why?" But I think it's really refreshing. Sean Isaacs, who is now in Green Arrow, he just had a little break, and he and I were just exchanging emails. I worked with Sean back when I did my WatchGuard source book many years ago. Sean wasn't published in Marvel or DC yet, and so we've remained friends, and it's just fun. He's like, "Hey, love to do a cover with you, or something." He couldn't really commit to a book, obviously, with his schedule, but so he's working on a cover for me right now. So it's really fun. It's refreshing. It's really nice, actually. Carl Kiesel. I don't know how to say his last name. I need to really just ask him. I've heard people say different things, but Carl was really flattering and sweet. And he came to me and said, "Hey, I'm watching what you do on Kickstarter, and I love your book. What you're doing." I think the biggest moment for me, though, was last year at the Ringo Awards. I met Joe Staten and his wife, and his wife and I were just talking. They were like, "Can we take a selfie?" I was like, "Sure, this is fun." So we took a selfie together, and then and Joe, for those of you who don't know, is a longtime Green Lantern and other DC Comics, but mostly Green Lantern artist, and one of my favorites. He actually is one of the few pieces of original art that I own that is my book, is actually a Joe Staten piece. But I was talking to Joe's wife, and she said, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I do Spider Squirrel." And she goes, "Oh, Joe loves Spider Squirrel." And I was like,
Oh, wow.
"No, this is awesome." And so I totally spazzed out. My wife was like, "What is wrong with you?" I was like, "Joe likes my book." So that was a lot of fun. So anyway, not the same as somebody coming and saying they want to work with me, but that was all the same value. It's fun. It's a great community.
Cool.
Okay. So for me, I'm actually an art student at my college, and one of the classes here, or when I'm at college, is comics and graphic novels. Do you have any advice for people who want to get into that kind of stuff?
Not being an artist of that ilk, like what you're doing. Again, I'm not drawing books. I can tell you that I have people all the time slide into my DMs, and they say, "Hey, here's my stuff," and I try to pay attention to as many as I can, because I know that artists they're trying, and some are good, some are bad. Not bad, they're just unrefined. I'll say it that way. But my biggest thing is to, one, take your ego out of everything. And what I mean by that is draw with all of your ego. Like, put yourself, just lay it into the work. But when it comes to hearing reviews and hearing criticism, buckle up. It's better to hear where you're doing poorly than it is to hear where you're doing well. And your art teacher may even tell you that, if they're a good teacher. It's easy to take praise. It's very easy. As a writer, as a creator, it's the same thing. It's easy for people to go, "Oh, I love your book." Well, that's great. What sucks about it? And so it's really important to pay attention to that. Do sequentials. I just had just a couple days ago before I got sick, I had some guy slide into my Instagram DMs and says, "Hey, I'm a comic book and manga artist and blah blah blah, and here's my work and here's a whole bunch of stuff." And I said, "Hey, this is cool, and your entire Instagram is all pinups. I'm not looking for a cover artist. What do you have for sequentials?" He's like, "Well, I get you some." And it's been 4 days and I haven't gotten any. And so that tells me that they're not really working on every aspect of the craft. So don't just focus on one, unless that's all you want to be, is the next, uh, J. Scott Campbell, who almost exclusively does covers now, or Ed McGuinness. Those guys did do sequentials though to get where they are. And I think it's really important to make sure that if you're going to do comics and graphic comics work, you focus on your sequentials, which means master things like storyboarding, page flow, understanding gutter timing, beats, doing, if you haven't heard of the term beats, like understanding like page beats and panel beats and how the time dilation works between panels. So those are arts in and of themselves. They're minutia, but they're arts in and of themselves. And those are things that I see a lot of really good artists who can do pinups and covers don't do a good job of. And then there's other artists who get work all the time, and people go, "Well, he doesn't draw as well as I do," and it's because he or she has mastered these things, like one, being on time. That's always important. Meeting deadlines, being a nice person, and being reciprocal receptive rather of criticism when criticism's due, but also mastering the finer arts of fine arts, and that would be things like that, storytelling. How do you manage a page turn? Even if the writer doesn't give you the ability to draw some really cool, like, hey, what's next on the next page? Mastering the page flow so that somebody wants to turn the next page. Writers have to do that too, but it's all these little things. So I think, getting in, one, talk to people, go out to cons, show your portfolio off. You can lead with pinups and covers, but don't stop there. And when someone starts talking about what they do like, listen to that half as much as the stuff that they aren't as keen on, the stuff they may not like as much. Listen to that twice as much, because that may be an area of, especially if it's repetitive, if you hear that over and over again from different editors or writers or other creators, artists, pay attention to the repetitive feedback, because that's where you're very likely lacking something. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing I've noticed in school is a lot of my really good professors, we have like critiques, and like, of course, everyone's like, "Oh, I like how you did this. I like how you did that." And my professor's like, no, stop. Like, we know what we like. You have to like tell us what you don't like. And that's definitely hard because like we're all like on the same level. Like, you don't want to be like saying what you don't like about someone who's like the same like artist level as you, same grade as you. But that's definitely like what you have to do. And so yeah, I've had a lot of professors tell me that. So
No, it's great. You have good professors. I can appreciate that. And peers, I'd listen to your peers too. They don't have to be right, but they may have some feedback that is valuable, even if it's not, right in your eyes. You may disagree with them, but it's still valuable, right? That's the biggest thing. Is that's what I meant earlier about, like, just check your ego when it comes to reviews and just listen. It's hard to be objective about our own art, though.
Great advice.
I guess
Now-
like segueing, but staying in the realm of college, I'm curious why you chose University of Richmond. At first I thought it was the spider thing, but then you said that, that came from your like students or whatever. So why University of Richmond?
Yeah. So it actually was going to be VCU. Well, okay, backing up. Because somebody asked me just this week, like, why is he's from Fredericksburg, but why is he not in Fredericksburg? And I was like, well, because there's no big buildings in Fredericksburg that are worth a dollar.
There are in the movies.
I mean,
or
right?
TV shows.
So exactly, the top of the Episcopal Church is about as tall as you're going to get. So I needed to move them. So that was actually a script change. I wrote the book originally in Fredericksburg, and then I realized I had nowhere to go. And I love my city. So what I did was I moved him, he is from here, but I moved him to Richmond. And again, I was originally going to do VCU, but actually it kind of hit me. I go, oh, they are the spiders. Oh, and the diamonds down there. And they're and the flying squirrels, the baseball team. And I was like, oh, that's just too much perfect. I've got to put that together at some point. And so it is really the spider thing more than anything else. So um, I put him there. Plus, I think UR doesn't get the credit, publicly, nationally that it could. Just like JMU didn't up until recently, and even VCU up until Shaka took over the basketball team, and now he's over at Marquette. Um, the whole Havoc thing, which that's where VCU got put on the map. So I figured this is my way to kind of give UR a little bit of love.
I did like the UVA reference, as tiny as it was. We are known for our parties. That's where I graduated from. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I would have gone to Charlottesville, but it was just a little too far out there. And again, same problem as Fredericksburg. Really,
There's
no
nothing in
big.
Charlottesville.
There
No point.
exactly.
No
exactly.
point.
So I've been there. There's a Benny's there. That's it is what it is. But yeah, there you go. And the Jordan poster that you probably caught too. That's he's my favorite basketball player. I grew up as a Jordan fan, so Spider Squirrel's going to be a Jordan fan too. But in the trade, we actually get into some of the posters, and we talk about like the Dr. Sodium cup, and the pineapple laptop. Just little director's cut kind of stuff on the back, or commentary rather, in the trade to talk about those things. So.
Yeah, it's neat. Now, since we do have a industry insider here, we get to yeah, he's showing it. He's a little late, but we get to ask a question that we actually had on our last episode that I didn't have an answer for, and I'm way too lazy to Google something. So we'll ask you. And the question was, I think last episode we were reviewing X-Men #1 from 1991. Where you basically have Chris Claremont and Jim Lee arm wrestling over what's going to get on the pages. And the question that Amber brought up is, does the letterer determine where the words go? Like where the bubbles go, where the words go? Or does the bubble show up there and then the letterer has to get the script in there?
Yeah, good question. So no, the letterer is. So here's let me start the answer with this: the letterer is absolutely a part of the creative team, and anyone who really thinks otherwise is just uninformed. Now that being said, it does depend. So all of my books, with rare exception, all of my panels, with rare exception, the letterer determines where things go. Now, I can show you where when we did Spider Squad #1, where DC was, in fact, page 2 was a great example. So page 2, we have a lot of panels and a lot of dialogue. And that's usually a faux pas in comics. Like you try not to do both. You either do a lot of panels and minimal dialogue, or you do a lot of dialogue and minimal panels. And then you kind of balance that. And there's some rules about that I never really pay attention to. So this was one of those ones where we had a lot of dialogue and a lot of caption boxes and a lot of things going on. And so when DC drew the pages, he suggested, hey, here's where I think the letterer could do this and this and this. And then I worked with HDE, who did the letters. He's fantastic. I love the guy. He agreed on the general placement. He said, what I want to do is, if you don't mind, I want to do something like they do in Invincible, where the balloon doesn't finish. It doesn't hit the gutter walls. It ends the gutter wall. It is the gutter wall. And I go, dude, whatever works for you, by all means. And so, a good letterer, I'm going to be really clear about that. A good letterer is as much of the creative team as anyone else. And they usually find those placements for you. And I have books that have been hand lettered, and I have most of my books are digital now. The nice thing too is the ability to, with digital, for example, to move things. I never move a box without asking someone, unless it's something minor like trim. So a great example is I had to move a box in a little bit of a caption box. It's in the same general vicinity, north-south, but east-west. I had to move it in away from the margin because it got trimmed off when I reduced the book size to a digest, kind of a manga size. And that's just more of an editorial fix. That is not you put this in the wrong spot fix. So don't do that to your letterer. If you have a problem with where it's located, ask him or her to fix it. If they disagree, listen to why, and then maybe take the feedback. But yeah, the letterers do determine where the pages, where the bubbles, the balloons, and caption boxes go generally.
Right. Only took one episode to answer that question. That's
No,
very
yeah,
efficient.
yeah, yeah. And I worked with, and again, I work with some pros. So HDE is great. Full Court Press is great. I'm working with Taylor Esposito, who actually just lettered the Space Ghost for Dynamite. He's fantastic too. So I've been very fortunate, like with artists in general, to work with some really professional letterers who give me feedback too. They go, "Oh, that's too. Can I break this up? This is way too much for one balloon." I go, "Sure, dude. Whatever." So.
Yeah, it's definitely an art in its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't just copy and paste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, very cool.
They do copy and paste, but that's the easy part of their job. They got to figure out where that crap's got to go. Like, especially when artists fill in like all these. There's I'm trying to think. There's a page I remember reading, and the artist who did the page, it was a Deadpool book, and it was a splash page. Well, it was a single panel page, splash page. And it had all these dialogue boxes. I think it was a Joe Kelly issue, and there was just tons. It was just super verbose. The artist actually showed the page without the word balloons, just so he can show all of the little cool Easter eggs that he threw in the entire. Like there was a Mandalorian helmet, and there was like a Funko Pop of somebody, and like all this other stuff, and like you couldn't see any of that because it was covered by word balloons. So, yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, there's a balance to be had.
Great. Well, I certainly appreciate your time. Before we wrap up this episode, I want to give you an opportunity to tell us what you're working on now, what's coming up in the future, and do a little self promo.
I am so bad at that. Thank you. Yeah, I actually do have a book. It's a mature audiences book. It's my first mature audiences book for the Zion Studios line that we were doing. We just call it American Yakuza. It actually has a longer title than that, but I won't get into that. It's live today, but we are also, as I mentioned earlier, going to branch out and take Spider Squirrel, Trash Panda, God Quest, all my superhero stuff, as well as Vito Del Sante's Stray, which I will be publishing soon for him, and Scott Fogg's Night Care, and moving those under the Blind Squirrel banner. So that kind of like the DC Vertigo labels, there's a demarcation line so that it's a little easier for folks who are looking for a specific thing to find that thing. So my mature audiences, non-superhero, noir books or whatever, unless there's a direct reason for them to be in the Blind Squirrel zone, they're going to be over in the Zion Studio space. Not all the Zion Studio stuff is going to be NSFW mature. It's just this one currently is. And then Blind Squirrel will keep exploring the universe. It is something of a shared universe, but you don't have to read all of the other books to enjoy what we're doing. So I've got. So next month we should be launching Night Care 1 through 3. 1 through 3. For those of you who did go to college, that is not a 3. You just can't see my thumb. That's all that is. 1 through 3 is going to be re-released next month for Scott Fogg's book, and then we have 4 coming. After that, from the Blind Squirrel brand, we're also going to do a one-shot called Rook, Return to Cinder. That's a non-superhero book. It's also black and white, but the character exists in a meta-human universe, and he exists in my made-up city, Summit City, where he does fight super villains. So it's in that. That's what I meant by like it's in that same zone as maybe Spider Squirrel and stuff. Even if he's just a human police officer, disgraced, and now trying to clear his name while really stopping all the bad guys from doing their stuff. And then God Quest is going to continue. We actually have Ariel just turned in page 18 of number 3, I think is what I got last night. I've been delirious on drugs from being sick, so I can't remember exactly what page number it was, but one of the later pages in that issue is coming. So we'll start getting that colored and then lettered and then finally edited and whatever other stuff that'll be out later this summer. So there's a lot coming. You can expect something from me pretty much every month, whether it's Zion Studios or Blind Squirrel. I may bounce back and forth and do one, then the other, and then the other, and then the other. So there's a lot coming. Just follow me anywhere on social media. You'll see me talking about my stuff.
Awesome. You say you're not good at it, but that was perfect. Self promo. Well, cool. I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Any last comments, questions, girls?
I have a bonus question.
All right.
Not related. You mentioned doing, American Ninja Warrior and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Do you have one of those cool, like, homemade, like, courses in your backyard, like they always show on the TV?
I did.
Ah.
Yeah, I actually still have the monkey bars, rope climb, and rings out there, and I have a few parkour boxes still out there too. So a little bit, but I'm actually, for those who don't know, I'm closer to 50 than anything. Um, and so my kids are all kind of they're out of that stuff, so they're not doing it with me as much as they used to. It was a little bit more fun when they were joining me in this stuff. So some of that stuff's kind of falling apart, and it won't go into repair. It'll go into the dump. And I started doing more Japanese gardening in my backyard, so that's slowly taking over where the fun stuff used to be. So
I always thought that was really cool watching the people practice in their backyard. So
it is. It's really fun, and my wife and I still go out there and like we do the monkey bars and the rings and the rope climbs and stuff like that because we believe that motion is lotion, and even though we're getting older in age, we say it all the time. Like we're getting older, but we're not getting old. We refuse to get old. So,
But the two of us are old enough to know that there was Ninja Warrior before American Ninja Warrior, and I don't think the girls ever saw that show. But
on
I used to
G4,
love
that
that
was
show.
just the same thing, but in Japan, right?
well,
Yeah.
that's Sasuke, and that's still going on. It's in season 38 now, I think. Yep. So that's where it started, and they brought it to the U.S. and it was just Ninja Warrior, and it was on G4, which is been consumed by NBC. So NBC, and then they bought all the rights, and that was American Ninja Warrior.
Hmm.
Yep.
I used to
Yeah.
love G4. And
Man. Yeah. Well, Jamie's a friend. Jamie Ron, the green-haired Captain NBC. He's actually stayed here at our house, and in fact, yesterday was his birthday. I was texting him yesterday.
Cool.
So happy birthday, Jamie.
All right. Well, like I said, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. We thank you so much for joining us, Charlie. And we've read through the Spider Squirrel series. We look forward to. Oh no, you've deciphered.
Who knew it did that?
Look what I found. There we go.
I think you've just announced what kind of MacBook you have, what kind of laptop you have.
It is a MacBook. Yep.
Yep. So we're going to look forward to what you got coming up with Blind Squirrel, and we might have to dedicate an episode to one of the issues coming up soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you all.
Yeah, but
Danny,
just
keep
to
at it.
Yeah,
I will.
maybe she can do a cover for you someday.
She's got look right there. There's my Danny. Just hit. You can. My DMs are open. Go. Just let me see what you got.
This is where Dad says this is really only episode 2 of this podcast. I lied about the whole thing. This is just to get my daughter in the door. And
Seriously,
the
though, I'll look at it. Yeah.
the 3 listeners was a lie. There's really 1. No, but thank you so much. This was great. You've set the bar up high again for whoever comes up here in episode 125. We try to keep on finding someone in one of these industries that we cover. We cover comics, video games, all kinds of nerdy stuff. So yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
For our listeners, I'm going to remind you all to check out our socials. Go check out YouTube and say hi to Charlie while you're on one of our socials. We thank you as always for listening and in this case watching. And until next time, peace out.
Peace out.
And geek out.
Geek out.
Thank you for listening to the Family Geekery podcast. For more information, visit www.familygeekery.com. Don't forget to subscribe at your favorite podcast provider. And until next time, peace out and geek out.